There's something I've been feeling lately, and I'm surprised I didn't come to this realization earlier. The thing that I've been feeling, I think many of you might have felt before, or maybe you've only just started to feel it, like I have. It's a kind of disappointment and feeling of being stuck in a repetition and looking for something new, but not being exactly sure what that new thing is. But my frustration has not necessarily been with my actual life. It's more been with the content I'm consuming, the podcasts, the books, the YouTube videos. I feel stuck in this kind of Hotel California of my own algorithm, and really a cult of self-improvement. And it's for this reason that I'm feeling like I'm pretty done with self-improvement. Not necessarily in the way I live my life, but with the content that I consume. So in today's video, I want to talk a bit more about why that is, why perhaps you might be done with self-improvement too, and what I'm doing instead, and what you could do to still be better as a man, but without this very narrow definition of what improving actually is. To tell you how I got to this point, I really should tell you about my own self-improvement journey. Really, it actually began, and this might surprise you, I'd say it began with Jordan Peterson, actually. I remember being 18 years old. There was an interview on TV, on Channel 4 News at the time. Very controversial interview it turned out to be. But it was him with Cathy Newman. It was my first introduction to Jordan Peterson. There was something about, not necessarily him, but the ideas that he expressed that caught my interest, and I bought 12 Rules for Life shortly after. Let me try and paint a picture of the kind of young man I was at the time. I wasn't at what you would call a low point. I wasn't addicted to video games, porn. I wasn't smoking weed, doing any kind of drugs. But I wasn't really conscious of this idea of improving oneself, the idea that you could take deliberate action to get better, and you hold this higher ideal of yourself up there as something to aspire to. That was really when that started to turn on for me as a possibility. And I began to incorporate a lot of self-improvement values in my life, to the extent where I left for university shortly after that. I never really stayed with my parents very much until 4 years later. When the pandemic hit, I actually moved back in with them for a few months. And from 18 to 22, I credit self-improvement for a lot of the positive changes in my life, and my parents couldn't believe the person that came home was not the same person that left. My habits, my discipline was all completely different, and I credit that to self-improvement. The biggest things for me have been scheduling my day. That's a huge one for me. I love planning it out, doing what I said I would do, having this self-governance over my actions. Obviously, part of that is waking up early, or at least waking up at the time you said you would wake up. Working out, eating healthy, these ones came a bit later to me in life, and the very most recent thing that I've realized is incredibly beneficial is actually sleeping enough. So, not everything that I've changed for the better in my life has been as a result of self-improvement, but it's definitely been a big force. And in the process, I've become a big consumer of self-improvement content, from podcasts like Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson, to YouTube channels, to books ranging from the really old like Think and Grow Rich or How to Win Friends and Influence People, to the more modern like Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And I have a ton of other books I'm looking at on my bookshelf right here that I honestly don't know if I'll ever read because of this. Before I carry on with this video, I want to make it very clear. This is not me encouraging you to get off self-improvement, to not listen to that kind of thing. And if you're in a particular place in your life, I think it might be very important that you continue with it. Don't move away from self-improvement if you haven't got the basics down. And the basics aren't about being the average person. I think your baseline should be much above the average person. The basics that I'm talking about are waking up at the time you said you would, getting out of bed, following that schedule that you set the day before, having some kind of exercise and diet regime, and taking care of your mental health in some way. Those are the basics, and if you're struggling with that, or perhaps you still have some kind of addictive behavior like video games or porn, stick with the self-improvement content, because maybe there's something that you haven't heard yet. Maybe you're yet to discover that idea that clicks with you that will really help you in that regard. But let me tell you the moment I realized I needed to move on from self-improvement content. I was actually at the gym, and between sets, sometimes I'll read a book. If I'm doing big compound movements where I need quite a lot of rest time in between, I'll take a book, read a couple of pages between sets. And I took this book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Pretty basic personal finance book. And I was reading the first few pages. It was going over all of the same information that I've read before. Not to discredit the book at all, it's a fantastic book. I've just read so many other books like it. I've watched so much content with the same information. And I've already put these behaviors into practice. I just thought, firstly, this is getting kind of boring for me to just keep reading over and over again. And secondly, in what way am I improving myself here? If I actually understand the principles of self-improvement and I'm putting them into practice, then consuming this type of content, reading these types of books, it's not actually improving myself because it's so within my comfort zone. It's actually more of a form of mental masturbation. And I think sometimes we consume this type of content as a way to feel productive, as a way to feel good about ourselves, but actually, we might be better off using our time in some other way. There are only so many podcasts with David Goggins, with Alex Hormozy that I can hear before I start hearing the same messages over and over again. And if you do enjoy self-improvement content purely as entertainment, I think that's also fine. But as somebody who is looking to improve themselves, then there is something outside of this remit that would actually be more useful and more beneficial to me. So ask yourself this question: are you stuck in the pattern of consuming the same types of content over and over again? And if the answer is yes, is this content actually serving you anymore? Or is it time to think about what else you can discover and help you achieve your goals? So you've made your schedule and you're sticking to it. What do you add into this schedule now to actually enrich your life and improve as a person? In many ways, I consider Gent Z to be like a step after self-improvement. You've got the basics down. You're a productive, functioning man, but how do you aspire to some higher ideal of yourself? How do you reach that? Because maybe you watch the Jordan Peterson, maybe you watch the Jocko Willink, and I encourage you to still do that. But it's what else do you add? What spice, what flavor to create an enriching life? To give you an example, for me, the guitar has been something that's given me a lot of pleasure, and it's been a very rewarding part of my life. I've played since I was 9 years old, but honestly, over the last couple of years, I've barely picked it up. Now, I've realized that actually making time to play the guitar every day, to improve at that instrument, to have some kind of artistic expression and outlet for my emotions, that is what makes me a better person. That's how I'm growing. The same could be said for reading. Instead of reading all of these self-improvement books that express the same ideas again and again, how about you read a great work of fiction? How about you read a biography or an autobiography of a great man? Or alternatively, many self-improvement figures that you might like, contemporary figures like, let's say for example, Peterson. He takes a lot of his ideas from Carl Jung, who was a student of Sigmund Freud. So there you've got two layers of history to uncover. Personally, I like Robert Greene. I've read a few of his books, 48 Laws of Power, Mastery, Seduction. But he takes a lot of his ideas from Machiavelli. So I thought, well, I will finally read The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. In the Gent Z community, a lot of guys have shared their passion for cooking. Now, cooking is something I've never heard discussed in the typical male self-improvement space. But think about what a great skill to have, to be able to have full control over the food that you put in the body of both yourself and your family. And you can explore new cultures through cuisine. You have the great pleasure to cook for your loved ones, for your friends. Eating is a very communal, very social activity. So in terms of enriching yourself as a person and becoming a better man, cooking is a great hobby. And I hate it when you see, for example, Tate say, never cook, it's a waste of time. Well, if you only do things that are work related, only things that are directly a good use of time, then you're going to have a really boring life. You may as well be a robot. As men, we're not designed to live as monks. We are designed to experience culture, to create memories, and cooking is a great example of that, just like playing the guitar. So also remember to enjoy life. Go out, see your friends. If you haven't got a group of friends, try and nurture one. One thing that I'm doing lately is every week just going to a jazz show. I love jazz music. There's so many great places here in Chicago to watch live music, but I've been so caught up in both growing this channel and improving myself as a person, getting to bed on time every night, that sometimes I forget to actually go out and have fun. So obviously there's a balance to strike there, but I think if you're watching this type of video, if the algorithm showed you something like this, then perhaps you're a little bit more leaned in on the self-improvement monk mode type of thing, and you might benefit from actually going out, grabbing a cocktail, watching some live music, catching up with friends. For me, that's just as much what life is about as our work, as our routines, as our goals. It's also about experiences. And going back to the content thing for a moment, instead of the YouTube videos about self-improvement, I enjoy watching YouTube videos about history. I enjoy listening to podcasts about historical figures. And yes, you can learn from history, but I'm really not doing it for that purpose. I actually just enjoy exploring my curiosity. I always loved history as a child in school. Now I'm rediscovering it and I'm loving it again as an adult. So whatever you are curious about, allow your mind to enjoy that, to explore that without any feeling of guilt. Now, of course, I'm not truly done with self-improvement because we are never complete as people. What I am done with, however, is this very narrow idea of what it means to improve as a person. This channel has always been what I would consider self-improvement adjacent, and it will continue to be so. It's about expanding yourself as a man. And what I've discovered in my brief time on this earth is that what it means to be better, what it means to be more fulfilled, what it means to be a stronger force for good, is not necessarily what exists within the confines of the self-improvement community. Gentlemen, thank you for watching. Let me know how you're feeling about this topic in the comments.